no one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of someone else. The reason why I was having a downtime was because I was thinking about myself. I think here's number one secret to making it a great year. And number one is serve someone every day. Serve someone every day. Basically, add value to people. Serve someone every day. I got back from Nigeria about 3 weeks ago. And I mean, I will tell you, my wife will tell you, I just didn't have the motivation to do anything around here. But in the last 1 week, I've just had this incredible surge of energy the moment I switched into serving people. The moment I switched back into how can I add value to people? How can I add value to people? So I think that if we make up our minds that every day we're going to live that intentional life of doing for others. In fact, the reason why I was having a downtime was because I was thinking about myself. Thinking about myself. The moment we become intentional, and we begin to live a life of doing for others what they cannot do for themselves. And if we get into that mindset of, I am going to put others first, I'm going to add value to people, I'm going to serve people, what then happens, it becomes amazing what you and I are going to have and achieve. I didn't get any extra money in the last 1 week. Do you understand? But I just saw this incredible burst of joy and energy and seeing the face of people being served and being lifted, and the wisdom that all of a sudden came to people as a result of doing the event I did. And that tells me that there is great joy that comes from serving people, and in return, how it comes back to us. So all these past 3 weeks, I've been doing everything to try and motivate myself, but it wasn't happening. I knew all the things I should say and do and how to feel, but it still wasn't happening until I became intentional in serving people. You know, a great quote I like so much, Benjamin Franklin said this. He says, no one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of someone else. When you're intentional about lightening the burden of someone else, he goes on to say, if you're helping someone else lift a load in your life, you become a very useful person. Whose loads are you lightening? Whose loads are you making easier? No one is useless in this world if he lightens the burdens of someone else. Mahatma Gandhi said it this way, that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Is to lose yourself. I'm going to just bear with me. I'm in my personal development hat, but I'll find some scriptures along the line to help us so that the Apostle Paul's don't shoot me. I'm just kidding. But we'll add some scriptures along the line. But Mahatma Gandhi says the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself. Lose yourself in the service of others. And one of my favorite quotes, absolute favorite quotes, by a guy called Albert Schweitzer, he says, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones amongst you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. Find how to serve. And I think it's right on, because the happiest people are not always the most successful people, but they're the ones who serve the best. So you and I have met a lot of unhappy people, successful people, but listen, I've never met anyone, never met an unhappy person that gave their life of serving and giving and adding value to others. Martin Luther King said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You can still be great. Everyone can be great because everybody can serve. And my challenge to everybody is, can we decide to serve? Let's reverse it. You know, and when I look in scriptures, there's only one time in gospel is it recorded that Jesus said, follow me. Jesus said, follow me and follow my example. Only one time. And guess what? Anybody knows what he was saying, follow me for? When he was washing the feet of his disciples. He said, so basically, follow me how I serve. Follow me to serve. Let me show you how to serve. So following me, and then he's washing the feet of his disciples. Let that sink a minute, ponder on it. And I want to just talk to us about today. I want us to be intentional. How can I begin to intentionally do this? Begin to take your notes. Don't make notes of what I'm saying. Make notes of the actions that are coming to your mind how you are going to begin to take action, what you're going to begin to change, how you're going to begin to serve. What I'm saying is of no value, but something is going to begin to, not that it's not of no value, something is going to begin to stream through your thoughts. Begin to write those actions. Zig Ziglar said, possibly, I've said I've had a lot of quotes, but I think this is my top quote up there. Zig Ziglar said, if you would help people get what they want, then you will receive everything that you need in life. So you want everything in life? How many people are you intentional about helping them get what they want? We need to put others first. And if we're intentional about helping them, then all the stuff that I'm going to need this year, I'm going to get as a return of serving, as a return of helping people. There's this guy, Bob Eugene wrote the book, or Eugene Bob, either the other way, wrote a book on the other side of leadership. And he said, true leaders are motivated by loving concern rather than personal glory. Loving concern rather than personal glory. So for me, if Jesus were here and we asked him, what's important? What he would say to us is, value people. Value people. It's what's important. And not only valuing people, but serving people. How do you value people? You value them by serving people. And we're going to look at a couple of biblical examples, like I said, and get some understanding under our belt about what does it mean to intentionally serve people. And the first story is where Jesus is going into the upper room and the disciples are all arguing. Remember that scripture? Arguing about who will be the greatest in the kingdom. And I don't know who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom, but who's going to sit the closest to Jesus is what they're fighting about. And so they are back and forth and they're talking. And basically, as Jesus is listening to them, he realizes that what they've got is what we call horizontal thinking in leadership. They're thinking about, am I better than you? And where would I position? How am I going to position myself? I want to be sitting next to you. And he wanted to get them into vertical thinking. So he started talking to them on the passage, Luke 22, when they were bickering over which one of them would end up being the greatest. But this is how Jesus intervened and said, he said, kings like to throw their weight around the people in authority and like to give themselves fancy titles. And for me, the key is here. The key phrase is, it's not going to be that way. He says, let the senior amongst you become like the junior. Let the leader act the part of the servant. We live in a time today where so many of us, and this is something Ayo has demonstrated. Many people don't know how to serve. Every Saturday, when I can't imagine, Ayo will show up in the building and lifting and carrying and all that stuff. And sometimes we begin to look at ourselves that we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. But if you're called to do stuff, you're called to serve. You're called to wash the feet of others. And the key phrase for me, like I was saying, it's not going to be that way with you. Let the senior amongst you become like the junior. Let the leader act the part of the servant. Now, who would you rather be? That's the question. The one who eats the dinner or the one who serves the dinner? Think about it. The one who eats the dinner or the one who serves the dinner? You would rather eat and be served, right, than be served. But he says, but I've taken my place amongst you. And this is the Son of God. The Son of God has taken his place amongst us as one who serves. When we look at it biblically, begin to understand what serving people means. That's the book actually. There are three things that you kind of need to come to grips with in serving people. Number one, that a servant first puts first of all service over status, service over status, service over status, service over status. Let's look at scripture. Philippians 2. Let's look at verses 1-4. Let's read it together if we have it, if we can. Pierre, we didn't do slides. Pierre, Philippians 2, 1-4. I'll read mine here. It says, if you've gotten anything at all out of following Christ, if his love has made any difference in your life, if being in a community of the Spirit means anything to you, if you have a heart, if you care, then do me a favor. Agree with each other. One, it goes on and says, love each other. He says, be deep-spirited friends, not just surface friends. Be deep-spirited friends. He says, don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Guys, it's in the scripture. Help others get ahead. Help others get ahead. It says, don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage, but this is the clincher for me. It says, forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. Forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. Don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Help others get ahead. Help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. This was word for me. Word for me. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. You know, no time for personal stories here, but I will probably don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. And that's the key phrase. Now, not many of us can be the exact opposite. We're full of ourselves, including yours truly. And I know you all know somebody who's like that. They are full of themselves. It's not you. You guys are the good ones. And how many of us living or walking besides or walk with somebody like that, you know? And when you're full of yourself, when I'm full of myself, all I can think about is me. And the moment that it gets there, everything's going to be centered about who I am, where I am, what's happening to me, what's in it for me. And we all have to fight that because we are all basically selfish. We are born selfish. Now, I was talking about me, but let's do a test quickly. Everybody, hit the chat box. Has anybody been in a group picture before? You've been in a group picture before. Just play along with me. You've been in group pictures before. And remember, I'm the only selfish person here. I'm not talking about you, but let's just do this test to just find out if there's anyone else like me. Yeah, so Pastor is over syllabus. I didn't ask you to give me the answers. So anybody been in a group picture? Anybody been in group pictures before? Now, when you get into a group picture, who's the first person you look at? Who's the first person you look at? If it's someone else, just put the name of the person, you know, but I think I'm a very selfish person. So when you look at a picture, when the picture is taken, who's the first person you look at in pictures? Tell me. Okay. All right. Now, guess what? Have you ever, you know, when you see that something is not right with you, maybe your smile wasn't on point, or your makeup wasn't on point, or your heart wasn't on point, you've said, can we take that picture again? Let's not use that picture. Anybody done that? Anybody done that? You see, but what happened to all the 7 other people in the picture? They were fine. They were all right. They were okay. But I was not looking the path. And because I am not looking the path, we need to take the picture again. And this just tells me it does appear like we were born selfish, you know. And one of the reasons why we have to be intentional this year and become intentional is so important, because if we're not intentional, we will be selfish, because we were already born selfish. My natural nature is to be selfish. I'm thinking about myself alone. It comes naturally to me. So I have to be intentional not to be selfish. What can I do? That's the question you need to ask yourself. What can I do to add value to people? Instead of, how are people going to add value to me? That's the lie the world has sold us. How are people going to add value to me? But the question is, we should be asking ourselves, well, what can I do to serve people? Instead of, I wonder who in this year is going to serve me. We're going to have a complete mind shift. I used to run this event called Mind Shift. A complete mind shift in that whole process of service over status. A servant, secondly, puts character over comfort. Character over comfort. Character over comfort. In other words, they do the right thing, whether they feel like doing it or not. There are two kinds of people. There are the people that do what is right and then feel good. And there are some people who want to feel good before they do what is right. And if you want to feel good before we ever do what is right, you and I will not do a lot of things, right? We won't do a lot of things. Character over comfort. Because what will then happen is we'll let our emotions control it. But the moment that we say, no, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'll let the emotion talk, I'll not allow the emotion talk. That's character over comfort. You know, In the story of the Good Samaritan, a man is robbed, right? He was on the side of the road. He was half dead. And the Good Samaritan went over and took care of him, took care of his wounds, put him on his donkey, took him to a place to recover, paid for it, paid for it. The huge thing is that the Good Samaritan was willing to be inconvenienced. When last were you inconvenienced? Question for everybody. When last were you inconvenienced? Many of us want church to be in a certain place before I can come to church. When last were you willing to put yourself in a place of inconvenience for others to serve? Now, here's the key. If you and I are going to make this year a great year of serving people, let me tell you, the first thing that's going to happen to you, the first thing is we're going to have to be inconvenienced. Not the kind of message you wanted to hear. But we're going to have to be inconvenienced. We're going to have to be inconvenienced because when you have to serve people, they don't require service on your own time schedule. They don't require service on your own time schedule. No. I finished the event at 10 o'clock. Aya was going to the venue. I had to show up there to be with him, even though I didn't do much because I was tired. But it's not your schedule. They don't require you have. When last were you inconvenienced? When last were you inconvenienced for other people, to serve people? Now, in that same Good Samaritan story, people like you and I, what did the priest and the Levite do? They saw the guy that was robbed, half dead, and they went to the other side. They went to the other side of the road. How many of us have done like we're not seeing something going wrong? How many of us have acted like we're not seeing somebody sick? You know, I'll tell the truth, I'll show you. There's a message somebody has sent me now on WhatsApp. I've not opened it because I know what the message is about. I know what the message is about. And I'm in between trying to be the priest, the Levite, or the Good Samaritan. Because I know if I open the message, I know they are about to ask me for money. But that's exactly what the priest did. They saw the guy half dead. They went to the other side of the road, and they not only walked by, they walked. You know when you're walking very fast, as far away they could get away from him. And the question is, why didn't they stop? They didn't want to be inconvenienced. They didn't want to be inconvenienced. And let me tell you this. And do you know where they get that mentality? Is because they are religious people. And many of us are Christians or call ourselves Christians, but many of us are actually very religious. And here's what I'm sure they did. They wait for it. Are you ready? They prayed for him. And that's what our religiosity does. They prayed for him. They prayed for him. But look at the Samaritan. He didn't even pray. He inconvenienced himself. That's looking like God, you know? And it's amazing how Christians can make prayer the biggest cop-out. Let me pray for you. Let me pray with you. Sometimes just your 10 pounds could be just what that person will need. You know, I went to Nigeria once and people, you know, when you hit Lagos and they start coming to ask you for money, and I gave all these people money, and my brother was asking me, why are you giving them money? You know, they're going to use it to joke. I said, what's my business what they use it for? My command is to give. For God so loved the world, he gave. Simple. He didn't care what I look like. What they are going to do with it is not my business. My command is to give. You know? And sometimes we need to kind of just shut up and just serve, just help. We must choose character over comfort. I saw myself go from almost borderline depression in the last 3 weeks to this burst of energy the moment I went back into serving. I promise myself, we will have to be at times inconvenienced. We just will. And Jesus, he said it this way. And I'm not in my study, but it's right there I have it as a quote on my wall, just to remind me, if you want to save your life, Mr. Aaron, that's how I wrote it. What do you have to do? You have to lose it. So every day I'm constantly reminding myself, when I make some of my decisions, I'm asking myself, how are you losing it? Because the way to go up, the way to save myself is in how am I losing it? If you want to be lifted, you have to humble yourself. If you want to be the greatest, you have to be the servant. See, scripture just has these things upside down. If you want to be the first, it says you have to go last. How? If you want to live, you have to die. Jesus, are you all right? So I put it there in my office to remind me that I have to keep dying. I have to die plenty times because I want to save my life. But he who wants to save their life must first lose it. You have to first lose it. You have to be willing to go to the other side. And another thing the servant leaders do is they put we over me, we over me, we over me. Think about the big picture. They think about the big picture. They think of others, not so much of themselves. In John chapter 13, maybe we'll just stay here for a bit. John 13, let's NIV, John 13, 3-8. PA is helping me. Let's put that on there. John 13, 3-8. Yeah, okay. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal. Please follow this. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Sacrilege. The first thing that pops out to me is it's amazing in the most difficult hour of Jesus' life. This was his difficult hour, a crucial time, few hours from the very situation that got you and I where we are today. He's going to be in Gethsemane. He's going to find out that he must go to the cross. He's going to have the Romans come and take him. His main guys, Judas is about to betray him. Peter, his very guy, is about to deny him. He's going to go into a mockery of a trial. He's going to be beaten up. He's coming into his most difficult period on earth. And what is he doing? Serving people. This is the time I would implode. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'll just take my duvet and cover myself. And we're going to go through those seasons in the year. But I want to remind somebody, in those times is where you serve. Takes a basin and the water and washes their feet. Now, if you look through the Bible, this experience happened twice. There's only 2 times we see a basin of water ever mentioned. It happens now, and it kind of almost related to this story. Remember, Pontius Pilate, Jesus before Pilate when they wanted him to sentence him for crucifixion, he kept pressuring, and they kept on pressuring. What did he do? The guy went. He finally said, "You know what? I think he's innocent. Lest I say the wrong thing." Picked up a basin of water. He took his hands in that basin of water. He washed his hands. Look at the difference. One washed his hands of responsibility, of making a decision, of caring, of saving him. Another washed the feet of others. One served the others. One washed his hands of serving. And one of my mentors calls that basin theology, if there's anything like that. Pilate took a basin of water, put himself first. Jesus took a basin of water and washed the feet of others and put others first. That's the difference. That's the difference between how you and I, who are Christians, who are Christ followers, should think, and how a person who lives for themselves think. It's an entirely different world. It's a great test of servant leadership. It's he's washing the disciples' feet, being God who knows all things, yet washing the disciples' feet, washing the feet of the one who is about to betray him. Think about that. I went through a difficult season recently with somebody who was a mentee of mine, and every day I'm always hearing something ridiculous is doing, and many times I want to live stream it. Many times I know what I want to do to him, but I remember this stuff and making up my mind that I'll still be a blessing to him. And every one of the people's feet that he was washing in his deepest and darkest hours will forsake him and run. And what's he doing? He's serving. He's washing the feet. You know, let's look at another scripture, the Message translation, Matthew 25, 36 to 40, as I begin to bring this to a close. Matthew 25, 36 to 40. 34 to 36, fine, and then 36 to 40. He says, then the king will say to those on his right, enter, you are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation, and here's why. Guys, listen to this. And we know the scripture. It says, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. Then those sheep are going to say, Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you? When did we ever see you thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we ever see you sick or in prison and come to you? Then the king will say, I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these to someone, overlooked or ignored, guys, circle that. Someone overlooked or ignored. That was me. Hey guys, do you see Jesus every day? Ouch. You probably saw Jesus today, but you were waiting for this mystical something. Overlooked. It says that when you did it for one of these, someone overlooked or ignored. That was me, you did it to. That was me, you did it to. Every day we see Jesus. Every day we come in contact with Jesus. And Jesus values people so much that when we serve people, when we serve others, he takes it personally. That's my carnal side coming out. He takes it very personal. Takes it very personal. We run into people all the time, like that text message that I don't want to, WhatsApp that I don't want to open. You just don't feel close to God. You haven't connected with God for a while, and they would ask, what do you think I should do? And I think the answer is simple. Just serve people. You want to connect to God? That's what happened to me this last week. You want to connect to God? Serve people. Serve people. Because you see, every time you serve a person, every time you serve others, you serve Jesus. That's what our scripture said now. So when you see somebody who is overlooked or ignored, every time you serve others, you serve Jesus. You want to get close to Jesus? Feed someone. You want to feed Jesus? Feed someone. You want to clothe Jesus? Clothe someone. Incredible story that Jesus is telling us here. They're looking at him saying, when have we fed you? When have we served you? When did we do all these wonderful things you said we've done? But every time you do it to someone who's hurting, when somebody calls and you share time with them, you are there with them in their time of pain. You are serving them. You're doing it to Jesus. So every day, I want us to start making decisions where we're going to intentionally serve. If you come up and hug somebody and just give them an encouraging word, walk away, you can pretty much say you've hugged Jesus. If you feel like you haven't been close to Jesus for a while, just go to the street and be hugging people. There's this social media experiments where that guy just puts his hand out and just hugs people. That's Jesus right there. You can go home and say, I got hugs from Jesus. But many of us will still want to pray to feel spiritual. And for me, this is that year for us to connect with people. That's what Transformation House is all about. Let's connect with people. Now, the remaining bits I'm going to share, I literally lifted it from one of my mentors' books, which is Developing a Leader 2.0. I just thought to give us some meat out of it. And one of the chapters is on serving people. And so I want to give you these 5 things that he shared in the book to help us really walk and serve. Number 1, he says, I don't rely on my position or title. I don't rely on my position or title. Jesus said, you don't want to rely on those things. In fact, when John Maxwell is speaking in the convention, many times in the green room, he will say they will come in with his bio and ask, how do you want us to introduce you? This is one of those things I'm dealing with also on the road. How do you want us to introduce you? And he'll respond, well, just tell them my name is John. I'm your friend. My name is John. I'm your friend. That's what he wants them to know. You know, so he says he just wants to talk to them. If you're, and John would always say, if you're good, you don't need an introduction. If you're bad, a great introduction won't help you. You know, the second thing in the book he says, and the second thing is he says, choose to believe in people. Choose to believe in people. Choose to believe in people. Choose to not only believe in people, that's John, I choose to believe in their potential. TH, we're serious about potential. This is one church where you can grow. This is one environment where you can be anything you've been called to be. We are intentional about your potential. We are intentional, but you have to show up for us to know how to help you. You know, we're intentional about your potential. I and I are constantly thinking about everybody, almost on a daily basis, talking about everybody and how we can help those that we see. And I want to encourage everybody to come out of the woodworks, come out of the hiding, come out. Let's build this stuff together. You can trust us now. We've not faded yet, you know. So let's build this stuff together. Bring these potentials, bring these gifts, and let's see God begin to bless us. Number 3, I try to see things from the perspective of others. I try to see things from the perspective of the others. Now, let me just tell you now, this is one of the ones that I'm working on, because typically it's only my way or the only way. So I am still working on it. And I hope my wife is not listening. Oh, she's on. Okay. But anyway, so we'll move on with that idea. We'll just go on to the next one. Let me not say much there, you know. Number 4, create an environment of encouragement. That's what we want to do at TH. Create an environment of encouragement. Create an environment of encouragement. And John would say, I try to create an environment of encouragement. Do you know why? Because encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. Encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. And the 5th, the way John will measure his success on how much value I added to other people. If you're going to measure success this year, how much value are you adding to other people? And, you know, John Maxwell used to be a pastor. And it was in his second church that he really wanted it to grow, and it was really growing, and he was spending a lot of time with leaders, building leaders, training leaders. And this happened, what I'm about to share, kind of happened to me in Lagos, and almost brought tears to my face, and helping them minister to others, equipping the saints. That was John, doing the ministry work, you know. And he spent time working with leaders, teaching them how to lead people, train people. And one day John says he noticed that a person was coming to his office and didn't know who they were, but he knew they weren't one of his leaders on the list. So he asked his assistant, who's this guy? And he told him the name of the person, and so he asked the guy, are you in any of the leadership, whatever? The guy said no. Are you in any of the departments? The guy said no. You know how we pastors can be. So John wasn't happy with the guy at all, because he thought I train leaders. That's my calling. I'm here to train leaders. And here comes this guy who doesn't even know who he is in any of the things he's been doing. So the guy comes into John's office, and John looked at him and said, how can I help you? And the man responded, I didn't come to ask for help. So John says, so what do you need? He said, nothing. And this has happened to me before. So why are you here? And the man finally said, I'm here because I'd like to serve you. I'd like to serve you. And he said, I'm not a leader. I don't have leadership gifts. But I've been here for the last 2 months. He says, I love what's happening in your church over the last 2 months. And I've been asking God, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? I finished ministering somewhere in Lagos on my last trip, and 2 guys walked up to me and said to me, how many times do you come into this country? We would like to serve you. I'm like, what? You don't know me from anywhere. We would like to serve you. Like to serve you. Those 2 young boys know something. You know, and he said, I have this idea. And he said that he would like to run by John. He says, I can tell that you're busy. And John replied. So the man suggests, I would like to come in every Thursday, noon, every week. And I would like to do all of your errands for you. So you don't have to spend your time doing that. He says, I'll do all your dry cleaning. I'll go wash your car. Just make the list so you can spend time with leaders. And the man asked John, would you let me serve you? And by this time, John was crying already. And John said, well, but before you serve me, would you just pray for me to get saved again? pray for me to get saved again. And for 7 years, John tells the story all the time. Every Thursday, this guy would come and do errands for John. And it just changed John's life about adding value to people and serving people. The moment that we really have a desire to add value to other people, guys, our whole life will change this year. And we want to be that community in TH. We want to be that. Try us. I want you to try these things we're talking about. But come on our side to help us do this together. The moment we're intentional about serving others and adding value to other people. I'm going to share with you right now 5 things that you and I can decide to do every day. I made some decisions also that we can decide to do every day. And I want you to do them every day in this year. And I promise you, our lives will be incredibly changed. And all these 5 of these things I want to give you right now, you can do these things. Like I said, it's not complicated. Number 1, every day, decide like me that I'm going to value people. And that's the foundation of everything. Value people, value people. And that's the foundation of everything we're talking about. If I don't value people, I'll never add value to them. So every day, can we all decide to value people? Especially if you say you want to be like Christ, just value people every day. Yeah. Number 2, every day, let's begin to think of ways to add value to people. That's in the thinking. In other words, I'll look at your schedule and see where in this schedule is adding value. For me, this was one of those things. You know, Io would want me to talk, but when I think about adding value, then my answer is yes. My typical answer is to run. But when I remember I'm here to add value, then my answer is yes. There's pretty much nothing you can tell me not to do when I remember value. Is it going to add value to someone? Then my answer is yes. So look at your schedule every day and begin to ask, begin to look at it. Where am I adding value to? Who am I going to see today that's going to add value to them? You know, I tell people that my life mission is to make every single person I meet better than how they were when I met them. That's my motto. I'm here to make every single person, not every single person that I meet. You have to be better than you were when I met you. So what can I do to add value to those people? And I think of ways to add value to people. Number 3, every day, do things that add value to people so that when I'm with you, you know, when I'm with people, start looking for something, look for something that you can do right now that would add value to somebody. Something that you can do right now that would add value to people. When you're with them, what can I do for them that would add value to them? So every day I value people. Think of what is that value. People look for ways to add value to people. Number 4, every day I do the things that value people every day. Do the things that value people every day. In fact, at the end of today, the last thing you should do every evening is to do an inventory of your day and really ask these questions. Who did I add value to today? Who did I add value to today? Who did I serve today? Every day I value people. Every day, look for ways to add value. Do things that add value. Number 5, I encourage others to add value to people. That's what I'm doing on this call today. Encourage others to add value to people. Encourage others to add value to people. And I promise, if you do these 5 things every day, let's try this for the next 3 to 6 months as a challenge. If you intentionally do these 5 things every day, I'm telling you, if you just do these 5 things every day, every one of us can do that. If we just do 5 things every day, how can we add value to Transformation House? And Transformation House, how can we add value to our community? How can we add value to the people that God has sent to us? How can we add value to the people that God has sent us to lead? By serving them, by being there for them. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to repeat those 5 things quickly. Every day I value people. No, I value people every day. I think of ways to add value to people. Every day I look for ways to add value to people. Every day I do things that add value to people. And every day I encourage others to add value to people. Thank you very much for listening to me.